It's time for Talkin Tauntauns, your Star Wars source at AIPTcomics.com.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Talkin Tauntauns, the official Star Wars podcast for AIPTcomics.com. I am JJ Travers. I'm joined this morning, as always, by Connor Christensen and Jim Lahane. We have a good episode for you today. We're going to be talking parodies, a serious look. I don't know how serious it'll be, but a serious look at parodies. A little bit of news, two pieces of news, both of which I'm personally extremely excited about. So yeah, we should have a great show for you today. Connor, your coffee took a while this morning. Are you awake? Are you ready?
I'm barely awake. I am recovering from a 5-hour marathon of Star Wars parodies and such. And not only did I stay up late, but we'll get into it later. Some of them really made me lose some brain cells. So I issue the two of you a formal apology for suggesting this as a show idea, because it was a rough marathon of television. But I'm excited to talk about all of it.
Yes, I think I watched close to, I feel like 7 hours of parody material. And we may have been better breaking it up among a bunch of episodes, but no, we're doing it all at once.
I'm going to be honest with you. I just tapped out at one point. Like, there's a bunch of stuff on this list that I did not watch. I was like, I can't do this anymore. It was like a 50-50 split. I mean, we'll do our news pieces first, but yeah, this was, I don't want to let you pick an episode again for a while, Connor.
We talked about doing this months ago, and we were like, yeah, it's like a good back burner episode we'll throw out when things are slow. And I was like, oh, it's gonna be great. I have such fond memories of all these like little parody things, and with the exception of Robot Chicken, none of them aged well.
All right. Before we get into our news pieces today, we want to remind folks that we have an awesome giveaway happening right now. So there's one more week to enter. All you have to do is either shoot us a DM on Twitter or an email and let us know who your favorite Star Wars character is, and you can win Luke on his Tauntaun from The Empire Strikes Back. It's a Funko Pop. It's a GameStop exclusive. It's really cool. It's one of the bigger Funko Pops. So just send us a DM on Twitter at Talkin Tauntauns. Let us know who your favorite Star Wars character is, or shoot us an email, talkintauntauns@AIPTcomics.com. Takes less than 15 seconds probably, and you can win an awesome Funko. We'll ship it to you, so you don't have to worry about that. Yeah, let us know favorite Star Wars character.
I got it sitting right here waiting to go to a lovely home, and if nobody wants it, then I'll keep it.
We also want to remind you that our book club, our Star Wars book club, which operates through our Patreon, we have a number of tiers, and it starts at $2 to get access to our book club, and you also get access to our Discord community, which isn't just for Star Wars, it's for all sorts of fandoms. So we have a really great community there. Our book club, we had our inaugural meeting last month where we talked about the first book in the High Republic Publishing Initiative, Light of the Jedi. Went fantastic. We've got 9 people signed up for our second book club. We're going to be talking about the first book in the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy, Chaos Rising. So there's still plenty of time to sign up and join us. It's going to be on March 20th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. It's a Saturday. So we'd love to have more people join us. It was a ton of fun the first time around. As I said, you can get access to our book club and our Discord community for as little as $2 through our Patreon. You can get all that information on AIPTcomics.com.
Also, a little update, guys. I picked up my hardcover copy of Thrawn Ascendancy now. I just have to get through the remaining 300 pages of Thrawn Treason, and then I will get to Ascendancy, and I am excited. I'm living in a Thrawn world right now, and it's the best.
Yeah, Thrawn is one of my all-time favorite characters, and the hardcover is really nice. It comes with a poster. It's got the Chiss Ascendancy kind of crest along the spine. It's got the blue outlined pages for the Chiss. I like the cover art. It feels very nice. They do a really nice job with these.
Yeah, I also, just for whatever it's worth, went into Barnes & Noble just to buy Thrawn Ascendancy because the independent store I usually go to didn't have it. And then I walked out with Thrawn Ascendancy, Lost Stars, Master and Apprentice, and Breakfast of Champions, which is not a Star Wars book. But I walked out spending like $80.
Like, that's a cereal.
I fully expect to leave Barnes & Noble spending like at least around $75 to $100 every time I go in there, which is why I really try and space it out. Last time I left with the Thrawn book, something for my fiance, one of the D&D player books, and some other nonsense. It's amazing how fast it happens.
I don't even know where there's a bookstore near me anymore. The Barnes & Noble that was closest to me is gone. Any of the bookstores that I used to go to are gone. So Amazon, that's regardless of your feelings of it, that's all I got.
Well, maybe when you move to New York, things will improve as far as available bookstores.
I will be nowhere near anything in New York.
All right, man.
And that's how I like it.
Well, enjoy continuing to support a wonderful company that's not having a negative effect on people whatsoever.
With free shipping.
Yes.
It's having a positive effect on Jim.
Man, I miss working at a bookstore. I worked at a bookstore at the end of high school and into college, and it was a great job.
B. Dalton, Walden Books.
Borders.
Borders existed back? Oh, wait, you're youngin'.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Borders eventually become Amazon?
No. You are very wrong.
You sure about that?
I'm positive about that. Amazon was founded in a man's garage.
Or were they purchased by Amazon?
I don't know. They definitely went into bankruptcy and closed, so they might have had part of their, divisions absorbed by Amazon, but it's definitely two separate things. Anyway, away from bookstore memories and nostalgia, news pieces.
Your tauntaun will freeze before you reach the first marker.
Then I'll see you in hell. Hello, what have we here?
So our first piece of news, actually, I'm looking at this list. I'm going to do it in a different order here because I feel like...
There's two news pieces there.
Yeah. Well, one is A and one is B. I'm going to start with B because I feel like part of the reason A exists is because of B.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, our news pieces today, starting with B, is Star Wars Republic Commando is coming to PS4, Switch, I believe Xbox One, and PC as well? No?
No Xbox.
Oh, that's
Losers.
odd.
Which
It was
but that-
originally an Xbox game.
Yeah, that makes sense. It was an Xbox exclusive in 2005, so they're kind of just flipping the tables.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah, this is one of my all-time favorite Star Wars games. I played this on my computer when it came out just so much with my friends. It was a first-person shooter. You operated with a tactical squad of clones that all had, the number designations that clones have, but they also all had like nicknames and distinct personalities, and you were like spec ops in a Delta squad, basically. You were the elite clone troopers. And the story was pretty short, but what I played this game for was the online multiplayer. Did either of you guys play this when it was out?
I have been a PlayStation kid since I was like 10 and never had the opportunity to play this. So I got excited for this news because I was like, oh, cool, I finally have... Like, yes, I there's probably somebody right now who's like, oh, it's been on Steam for the last 20 years. But I don't like playing PC games all that much, nor do I have a laptop that can really handle PC gaming. So, no, I'm excited. I get to play it for the first time ever, and I'm super excited because I've never heard anybody say a bad thing about it.
It's actually one of my favorite games as well. I got it when it initially came out for Xbox, and I got the exclusive thermal detonator that came with it. It was basically
cool.
one of those plush toys, like the hand squeeze stress balls sort of things. And I would repeatedly throw it down the stairs at my wife and yell thermal detonator until one day it magically disappeared for years. It disappeared until we moved to Utah, and she eventually gave it back to me. It actually just came up yesterday. She asked where it was. And I'm like, oh, I know exactly where it is, and I'm not telling you.
Surprise.
But
this game was awesome.
I do
You got
really
to
love
go
the
to-
game, and I actually really love the book series that kind of spawned from it. The Karen Travis Republic Commando series is one of my favorites as well.
Well, it's an I don't know how much of the story they've brought of the story from the game that they brought into canon, but they did bring, they've brought specifically Republic Commandos into canon with Camden with
Camden Yards?
Yeah. They've brought Republic Commando into canon, or at least the Republic Commandos as characters with the Clone Wars and Battlefront 2. And then I think it's kind of obvious that the Bad Batch took a lot of inspiration from Republic Commando, because as JJ was giving that little spiel of what the Republic Commandos are, I was like, that sounds very familiar to something we're also going to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, Dave Filoni pretty much, I believe, said that the Delta Squad that appeared in Season 3 of Clone Wars was directly inspired from the game. And I didn't know about those novels until I read about this news piece and got interested in the game's history and went and looked at the Wikipedia. But yeah, there's 5 of them. I really want to get into them now.
It actually evolves into Imperial Commando, which is where the storyline kind of fell off for me. But for reals, Order 66, which is the Republic, one of the last Republic Commando books, had me in tears because I was so invested in these characters. And I don't cry; I am dead inside. So this is completely like what is wrong with my eyeballs? And the characters from the game kind of cross over into the book. They're different Republic Commando squads. So you have your squad of 4, like the Bad Batch, and they kind of cross over, but there's a storyline that's left unanswered in the game that the game kind of ends on that is never actually answered in Legends at all. And it's one of those big cliffhangers that Legends just kind of left.
It's too bad. I mean, the game was also supposed to get a sequel, and that got canceled as well. And I think it was the Imperial Commando, basically clone troopers as a part of the 501st under Vader before they kind of officially became stormtroopers, which would have been really cool. All right. So we brought up the Bad Batch. They were in the final season of the Clone Wars, which came out last year. And I think that was collectively one of our favorite arcs from the last season of Clone Wars. We talked about that very fondly, and I think all of us were like, they gotta do a show about these guys. Well, they're doing a show about these guys, as we already know, but now we know officially that it's coming on May the 4th, and we're getting 2 episodes within a week's time. So we're getting the debut on May the 4th, and then we're getting a second episode on May 7th. So I'm excited for that, the Sunday following May 7th, because we'll be able to talk about 2 episodes that day.
We knew this was coming soon because all the visuals from it looked done, and everything that we had heard, they said that it was coming in springtime sometime. So, but we just didn't know when. So this finally we're able to announce that we're getting it.
I was going to ask, do we know if this is a miniseries? Is it confirmed just going to be 1 season?
I haven't said, to the best of my knowledge, and looking at the Star Wars webpage announcement for this, there's no indication of how many episodes or how many seasons.
I think that's good of them, kind of keep it up in the air, because it's better to not know if it has a second season than to announce that it's a multi-year storyline to have it canceled after the first season.
Yeah, for 2 reasons. One, it allows you to gauge the audience reaction to see if you should be investing more work into it. And as Jim was leading to with that, you kind of give it away. If you know it's 1 season only, then when you get the last episode, you're going to be like, okay, this is going to be some crazy big finale, and that's going to be it. Whereas opposed to if it's open-ended, we could expect to see them again. But either way, I can't wait to see these guys in action. And they have so many people that have done incredible work in Star Wars working on this. Obviously, Dave Filoni is leading the project, but there's a ton of other really talented people working on this that have worked on Clone Wars, Rebels, Resistance, Mandalorian. Yeah, I fully expect this is going to be really good.
And D. Bradley Baker is every voice in the episode.
He's every single credit is to him.
I realize some of the folks listening may not be aware of what the Bad Batch is, so real quick rundown. They are Clone Force 99. So they are, as we said, they were first introduced in the third season of Clone Wars, but they are essentially a unique squad of clones who were genetically altered, and we don't know if it was on purpose or through an accident or just like not an accident, just a variant evolution of the strain of Django's DNA that they use. The point is they're all unique and different and have very distinct looks and personalities, and they're all exceptionally skilled within sniping, hand-to-hand combat, technology, or just picking people up and throwing them, and they're all really cool characters. Oh, Connor, didn't they just announce Black Series for these guys as well?
They did for Wrecker. I don't know about the others, but I assume if they're doing one, they're gonna do the rest. It would be weird if they're like, yeah, we're just gonna do one of these new clones, not all of them. But yeah, they did just announce one for Wrecker, Wrecker is the one who, as you pointed out, his special power is being able to throw people around. He's very strong. But yeah, so just the one so far, but I assume there will be more.
So just a quick correction on you, JJ. They were introduced in season 7, not season 3.
All right. So those are our two news pieces, for this morning. And now we're going to get into parodies.
You're George Lucas!
I take it you're here for the Star Wars convention.
I sure am. Want to see my costume? See? I'm a Tauntaun. But I don't have to tell you. You invented Tauntauns.
Well, that's serious.
Listen to my Tauntaun call.
Nicely done.
So, this was Connor's idea, as we said, and there was a long list of parodies that we're going to discuss, and there's a lot of them out there, and we just kind of had to trim it down because there was just so much of it. And I'm glad we did. We were originally going to do Spaceballs, but Connor's not a fan, so we asked that we do Fanboys, which I haven't seen since it originally came out in, I think, 2009. There was also Robot Chicken, which isn't on anymore, but was on for a long time on Cartoon Network and was famous for parodying like everything, but especially Star Wars. Family Guy did Blue Harvest, and that was a retelling of episode 4 that became 5 and 6 as well. And then something I had never heard of until Jim mentioned it, Hardware Wars. And then Phineas and Ferb also did a parody, but Connor and I didn't get to that because we were just fatigued from all this parody content.
Mentally exhausted.
Yes.
And that's not even going into the numerous other parodies that are out there. Like I can't even begin to gauge how many that there even are.
There are so many. It's like, I mean, almost there's so many different sitcoms that have done their Star Wars spin. Like there's an episode of Community that has one of the paintball episodes of Community is like kind of a Star Wars parody.
There's also, I think, the Goldbergs did one, which, as we get into Fanboys, I wouldn't be surprised by, is that the creator of the Goldbergs also wrote Fanboys, or
really?
Fanboys.
But I for some reason, I'm pretty sure Boy Meets World has a Star Wars episode. So there was a lot. As JJ mentioned, we were gonna do Spaceballs too, but we didn't because Spaceballs is Spaceballs is the gold standard. Everybody knows about Spaceballs. So it's not really worth the discussion. And plus, like you said, I'm actually not the biggest fan of Spaceballs. So we went with all these other ones. But man, I made the mistake of watching all of these back to back to back to back to back, just doing a whole like 5-6 hour marathon. And yeah, I feel dumber because of it.
Yeah, it was exhausting. I think that's the best way to describe what we did for this episode. And I will fully admit that I couldn't do it all.
So did you watch, we'll start off with Hardware Wars. I wanted to start off with this one because it is the original parody. It came out several months after A New Hope. And it is probably one of the weirdest of these because it is framed as a trailer for the movie for A New Hope, but it is a trailer that reenacts the entire movie in a 13-minute extended cut using the cheapest effects that you can get, purposely so, the cheapest effects, of which my favorite was the Cookie Monster puppet in place of Chewbacca.
Or the fact that C-3PO is straight up just the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. Actually, I didn't love this parody. It was kind of a little hard to get through, but I laughed a few different times. Like, it's got some good jokes.
I wouldn't put this up there with the holiday special, but it was definitely, like, it could definitely be used as a form of torture for me. Like, I just had like a big exhale after like the first minute, and I was like, this is gonna be really brutal. The Tin Man, the giant cassette tape, and just, yeah, I can't recommend that anyone watches this. It is most definitely made in the 70s, and it is most definitely one of the weirdest parodies I've ever seen.
So, but this is important. It is a very important parody because, one, George Lucas is on record of saying this is his favorite parody in 1999 at that point. So this is before any of the other ones we're talking about came out. But it also kind of leads into the fact that Lucasfilm is very open to parodies, where studios like Paramount have a tendency to shut down fan-made content for Star Trek. You get a lot of fan-made content for Star Wars because Lucas being so open to it. That kind of evolved into the Disney Lucasfilm still being open to it. And like they've had the Star Wars fan movie challenge that's been off and on for almost 20 years now, where they honored this movie at the first one or one of the first ones because it is such a pivotal thing in the fan community.
And it is such a product of the 70s and in kind of the best way. And it's as much as it was kind of painful to get through, it was kind of fascinating because it was also like the proto YouTube video, you know, where it's just like, this is just like a guy and his buddies made this like stupid little thing, except I was realizing, I'm like, but there was no internet to put this on. They were like, yeah, we'll put it on a tape and we'll just send it to people.
They actually played this in movie theaters.
Oh God.
And from what I can tell, it cost $8,000 to make. This is listed somewhere between
$8,000.
How?
But somewhere it's listed. I've seen two different numbers, but it's made somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million. And so this is listed as one of the most profitable fan-made productions ever made.
I really struggle to believe or understand that.
That's insane to me. But like I said, it has some jokes that made me chuckle. Like the opening, when they're introducing all the characters in the beginning, and everybody gets like a 2-sentence little spiel, and then they get to the Darth Vader guy, and it just says villain. It's pretty funny. Like, and then it quickly went downhill. Or, you know, when Obi-Wan's like, I gotta find the tractor beam, and then he finds the tractor beam and it's a literal tractor. You know, that was kind of funny. It had its moments. I mean, it was a collection of 6 moments throughout 13 minutes, but I understand why this is beloved by people.
To be fair, I own the 30th anniversary DVD, which I actually love the box art of it. It has like the fake stickers and all of them from like rental places and stuff. And I probably made it about 4 minutes before I picked up my phone and started scrolling.
I'm glad you guys could find enjoyment from it. I'll say that. Yeah, at least it wasn't too long.
Oh yeah, if this had been holiday special length, I would have given up. 13 minutes was pushing it, but was doable.
7 minutes would have been prime.
I think a minute and a half would have been great.
All right, so moving on. Family Guy. They did a bunch of Star Wars parodies, which is not surprising since that's kind of what the show is based around, is just callbacks to what's his name?
Seth MacFarlane's childhood.
Yes, and things he is passionate about and his sense of humor. So this started off with Blue Harvest. They parodied episode 4 and I think 2006, 2007. Yeah. I think it was season 6.
Enough that it wasn't in HD on Hulu. I had to watch it in standard definition.
It was in season 6. So it was 2007. So this was like one of their most popular episodes ever, and it actually led to them having their highest viewed season ever. And I remember when I worked at a comic shop that sold like DVDs and CDs as well, that people, when this came out, people bought it like crazy. Like it was super popular. So yeah, I haven't seen this or just Family Guy in general, and God, I don't know,
a
forever. Decade. Yeah. I watched Family Guy like most people that went to high school in the early 2000s. I watched it, and bought.
You were in high school in the early 2000s?
Yeah.
I wasn't there.
So yeah, it's been a long time and it has certainly aged. Some of the jokes on it were okay, but it's just like, it's so clearly a product of its time, where it's like a lot of the humor is like sex and gay jokes.
So little story around this. Before this, I'd never seen Family Guy, and I saw Blue Harvest at San Diego Comic-Con in 2005 or 2006, whenever it premiered, and it was the like unveiling of it. It was the first time they were showing it to anybody, and me and my dad and my brother just happened. We were waiting for the Kevin Smith panel, and to wait for the Kevin Smith panel, we're like, well, why don't we go to the panel before it, and we'll just not leave the room. And that way we'll have good seats for Kevin Smith. So we just sat through this Family Guy Star Wars thing. We loved it. And I was like 13 at the time. So I was like perfect target audience for this. And I probably haven't seen it in it's probably been close to 10 years. And the things I thought were funny then, I don't find as funny now. But there are still some really stupid one-liners that I love from this. And I think that's what I realized is like Family Guy is just like the dumbest humor. And I'm not knocking that. Like sometimes dumb humor is the best, but it is like just all callback humor and all fart jokes.
Yeah, it's about as like juvenile as it gets. And I don't think there was any malice in this humor. It's just, exceptionally juvenile, and there were moments that made me laugh, like in the Death Star, like the mall map that showed like the Macy's and the JCPenney and like the asteroid game when they came to Alderaan and they warped into the asteroid field, and it was like the Atari asteroid game. Like there's some funny jokes in there, definitely. But I watched the first one and I was like, there's no way I'm doing two more hours of this. So I did not watch the other two.
I think I actually laughed more at the other two than I did at the first one. The first one, they're playing up the pedophilia joke that Obi-Wan was interested in Luke. Oh, so much. I got so just angry at the episode. I'm like, this is just terrible. The homophobic jokes, the pedophilia jokes, it got overly much, and I couldn't handle it. I'm like, this is just so stupid. And then you throw in a I'm not gonna say what I was gonna say, but a Grey Poupon commercial throwback, like really.
As a Wayne's World fan, I actually laughed at that.
I still think the Craig Poupon throwback is great.
But that's not as bad as the Juicy Fruit commercial in the second one. And I'm like, Juicy Fruit? Really? You actually pulled out the entire Juicy Fruit song. Like, you felt this was worthy of 3 minutes of this episode to do the Juicy Fruit song.
It's funny that you bring up the Obi-Wan. I forgot the character's actual name.
It's Herbert the Pervert, which is
Herbert
just like,
the Pervert.
This character, is the perfect encapsulation of like the era in which this show was at its height and what was acceptable at that time, and that people would not bat an eye at.
Where the joke, like, what's the joke of Herbert the Pervert? He's a pedophile. Okay, but what about it? No, that's it. That's the joke. Like, I forgot that he was a character. So when I first started watching this, I'm like, why is Obi-Wan a pedophile? Oh yeah, because one of the characters in Family Guy is a pedophile. But I was the opposite, Jim. I enjoy the first one much more than the other two. Although the second one's a lot better than I remember. I remember the second one being like awful, and the second one is great. Not great, it's fine. The third one, they even say in the opening crawl of the third one that like we ran out of ideas. This is going to be bad, and it is. Like, it's not very.
But I think they premised it with this is a bad episode, but here it is, and so you're like your mindset going in. But your mindset going in is like, this is going to be terrible, and it is. But like when you tell me off the bat that the episode is terrible, clearly this is what I'm going to be thinking going in. I did, like I said, I laughed more at the second two. That's because I didn't laugh at all the first one. Like
the first one has like one-liner jokes that I know like my dad and I still say to each other like to this day. Like one of our absolute favorites is when it's in the beginning when he goes, "Hold your fire. There's no life forms aboard." And the guy goes, "Hold your fire? What are we paying by the laser?"
Yeah,
he yells at him, "You don't do the budget, Terry. I do." That is still so funny to me.
Yeah, there are some like very simple jokes in there that like actually don't rely on like farts and sex and are just like not callbacks to anything and are just simple funny jokes. It's just like they're mixed in this like myriad of like utter nonsense. It's constant callbacks. Like it's just like I mean, it's Family Guy. I know what to expect here. I'm not expecting like highbrow humor, but that being said, yeah, a lot of this stuff is like very uncomfortable to watch now.
I will say I applaud their and this is like Family Guy as a whole. Their how much they lean into bits. Like in the last one, It's a Trap. I was trying to figure out like why did they switch the speeders out for bicycles in the speeder chase on Endor? And the only reason they did that was so they could squeeze in a Pee Wee Herman joke, which is so weird because it's like that's not like you made this bicycles just so you could have Pee Wee Herman pop up and go my bike, which is like a very like deep cut joke anyway because I don't think not that many people have seen Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
Well, it's at the whole TV show. Pee Wee's from the 80s. Like that's before me. Like, yeah, I didn't watch Pee-wee much as a kid because I found him incredibly obnoxious and stupid.
Very uncomfortable, too. He's got a problematic history that we won't get into. But, yeah, so I do applaud them they really commit to bits. But I would say, like, the Family Guy specials are, like, 25% still decent jokes and then 75% just terrible, like, juvenile, awful humor that borders on misogynistic and homophobic at times.
I'd probably round that down to 10.
I would say it straight up is.
I'd probably round that down to 10% decent jokes. I think some of my favorite ones were actually, I think the ones I laughed the most at were when, I'm losing his name. Robot Chicken.
Seth Green.
Yeah, Seth Green. When Seth Green, who voices Chris, was defending Robot Chicken in the middle of the show.
That was very funny.
But you needed to know that Seth Green is the voice of Chris and also the maker of Robot Chicken in order to understand the context of the joke, which we're looking at 15 years later. A lot of people probably wouldn't get that connection, but especially watching these back to back, like the jokes were very funny in that instance, and like because they kept bringing it up in every single of the 3 episodes. That
again, the commitment to the bit, the fact that the major the major culmination of the climax between the Emperor and Luke is based around the Emperor talking down on Seth Green's career. I was like, this is Family Guy is the king of running something into the ground and then keep running it into the ground so much that it eventually comes out of the ground and becomes funny again. Because like the Seth Green bit was like, okay, we get it. You Seth Green's on the show and you like to make fun of him. And it was kind of annoying, and then it got funny again because they kept doing it. And that's why, like I said, the fact that the Emperor just makes fun of Seth Green to anger Luke, I thought was pretty funny.
The fact that he brings up without a paddle actually made me laugh out loud. It made me laugh out loud because it's like one of the most random callbacks that you can bring up. The fact that Seth Green is in this movie, I think he's just in the movie.
Oh no, he's like one of the stars. He's one of the 3. Which that is another movie that is definitely a product of its time. But I would,
which one? Sorry,
Without a Paddle came out came out around the same time. But I think it's safe to say that these I wouldn't call them movies, but these Family Guy specials, they have their moments. It's just those moments are buried underneath a lot of trash.
Yeah, there's parodies we should be talking about and watching today that are not that. So I'm glad I went back and looked at it, but I don't think I ever need to do so again. In fact, I'm positive I don't.
I own all 3 of them, and I don't know if I will ever open them again after this.
Yeah, I will probably never watch Family Guy again. I didn't have a desire to watch it before this. This parody episode is the only reason I did. But yeah, Jim, why don't you tell us a little bit about Phineas and Ferb? So Connor and I didn't get a chance to watch this, but you did.
I had really hoped that you guys would watch this one because I like when you take Family Guy, like all of these parodies kind of have a different concept of what they're trying to do as a parody, where Family Guy remakes the entire movie in its own twisted image using its own characters. There are other ways that we can do the parody, and 2 of these that Connor had also brought up with doing was Tag and Bink. And along with Phineas and Ferb, they're both kind of in the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead type of parody, where if you're familiar with that, it's basically 2 background characters of Hamlet, and you watch the entire play of Hamlet through these 2 characters' eyes in more of a comedic sort of way. And so that's what both of these Tag and Bink and Phineas and Ferb Star Wars are kind of the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. They are following along with the movie. The movie takes place as you know it, but it's taking place in the background while you are following these other characters. And while Phineas and Ferb is not highbrow humor, out of all of these, I would say it's the only one that I would watch with my daughter. She's 10 years old, and none of these were good for younger children. And Phineas and Ferb was. It was funny. It was enjoyable. I really liked it, actually. Not all the jokes are great, but in any of these, any ones we're talking about, not all the jokes are great. And so I think the Phineas and Ferb just was one of those. It was the first one I watched, and it's probably the most enjoyable out of anything that we watched. I just enjoyed sitting there and watching it. So I would recommend it. It's super easy to find on Disney Plus. Just type in Phineas and Ferb, and it popped up as even before the show itself popped up.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't have time to watch it. Although after hearing you talk about it, not just now, but also in the Discord and looking up some reviews, I wish I would have, because I was before I went to bed last night, I looked through a few of the old reviews on it, and a lot of people were saying you don't have to know anything about Phineas and Ferb to watch this, which is good because I know little to nothing. But also most critics and reviewers saying like this is like one of the best, if not the best, Star Wars parody that's ever been released. Like it doesn't, make fun of the franchise or make fun of anyone. It just pokes fun at it and is like a wink wink nod, we love this too, but here's some like jokes we can make about it. So I'll probably watch it after we get done recording. Actually, I need a good parody.
I just need a break. It's just a shame that I didn't start with that, because by the time I got to the last bit of parody that I watched, I was exhausted. I was like, I can't do any more of this. That's why I couldn't watch any more Family Guy either. I was like, this is just way too much. But yeah, I'm glad it's positive and actually wholesome and enjoyable. Maybe in a week I'll give it a try.
I tapped out 3 times on Family Guy. I believe on Discord, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And then I'd put in another one. Like, I cannot do this anymore. And then at midnight 30 last night, I'm like, okay, I've watched all 3 of them. I'm done. I can't do this anymore.
All right. Moving on, we have Fanboys. So this was the film we swapped for Spaceballs. I have not seen this in over 10 years since it initially came out. This is a film about Star Wars fanboys that are going on a mission to drive from Ohio to Skywalker Ranch in California to see Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, before it's released in theaters, because one of the 4 of them has terminal cancer and is going to die, and they want him to be able to see it before that happens. There's some friend dynamics here as well, but that's basically the premise of it, and it came out in 2009. It has a lot of people in it that you would recognize. Kristen Bell, Seth Rogen, Danny McBride.
Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen playing Seth Rogen playing Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen was in it 3 parts in this movie.
He was great in everything he did in this. Billy D. Williams, Carrie Fisher, William Shatner. So they got a ton of people to participate in this.
I think it should be noted also. It was written by Ernie Cline. Co-written by Ernie Cline, who, if you've heard of Ready Player One and Ready Player Two, he also wrote those books. So he's very well known in the geek writing, and it's also written, or the screenplay is co-written by Adam F. Goldberg, who is the creator of The Goldbergs, like that story of his life. And so you have these 2 super geeks, and directed by Kyle Newman, who is also a huge Star Wars fan, and I've heard of him for quite a while, especially in regards to this movie. And this movie has a weird history. Like, you're automatically uncomfortable opening this movie because it's produced by the Weinstein Company, and you're like, second that comes up, you're like, oh, this is uncomfortable.
No.
But apparently, this movie took forever to get made, and they kept bouncing it around the Weinstein Company trying to get the script changed. And at one point in this script, they had removed the cancer subplot, or the cancer plot, as it's the main point of the movie, because they just were, as they wanted it just to be more straightforward as a bunch of kids breaking into Skywalker Ranch to watch Episode 1. Like, can you imagine this movie without the cancer plot?
I think it might have been better, because it could have just been 110% comedy and not tried to squeeze in these like the juxtaposition of like really juvenile humor with like this very serious storyline of a guy dying from cancer. Those 2 like, tones mashed up never mesh well together in this movie. It's like every instance where it seemed to get serious, I felt like it was really jarring. Like, oh yeah, I forgot that this guy's dying. But I think the development pit that this movie existed in is evident in the final product, because it's weird, because JJ, I haven't seen this movie in probably 10 years. I think I watched it once while I was in college. Other than that, I saw it when it came out. I remember loving it when it came out. And watching it now, like, I never realized, like, it's like, man, this movie is wildly homophobic at so many points that I don't remember. uses the R word flippantly, which is just like makes me so uncomfortable.
That's definitely a product of its time.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, 100%. So, but like the on top of that, it's almost overacted, and not necessarily. It's hard to explain that because like I can't remember the guy who plays the guy dying of cancer. Like, legitimately gives an amazing performance. But like as I was paying attention to like the actual script of what they're saying,
Sam Huntington, I believe.
yeah, I've seen him in a bunch of stuff. I can never remember his name. But
No,
I'm like,
that's
this
wrong. I'm sorry. It's Chris Marquette.
okay. But I was like, this is such like a melodramatic, like not very well fleshed out moment. Like in the beginning when when him and Bottler are having their first like rekindling and they get into the argument. I was like, this is like actually like a very he's really putting his all into this scene, and it's a really stupid scene where I can't tell what they're arguing about because they start arguing about like Luke and Leia being actually attracted to each other, but I'm like because of the way this is written, I can't tell who's arguing for what.
I 100% agree with that. It felt like a very weird argument. Like, what are you arguing for, and how is it like? And at the end, like the end of the argument just kind of happened, and they're like, "This is a lot of those jokes." Like, I went with it. And I think I was going with this movie 100%, like regardless of stupid humor and the fact that Linus's illness never really seemed to take into account into the movie at all. He never seemed ill until the one time he collapsed and ended up in the hospital. They're like, you need to get him home. He's very sick. I'm like, I haven't noticed him being sick at all.
Somebody tell him because he doesn't know he's sick either.
There's literally not one moment in this movie that you kind of go, oh, he's not feeling well, because never comes up. Like they could have, like, I think they did that so they could cut it if they needed to. But this movie was going, I was full on board, like regardless of stupid humor, whatever, I was on board with the premise until they get to the confrontation with the Star Trek fans and Seth Rogen in terrible makeup. And they're commenting on the fact like, well, there's no gay characters in Star Wars. And I'm like, wait, what? And
that's their basis of insulting Star Trek is like, well, you guys have gay representation. And it's like, wait, I'm sorry, is that a bad thing?
It's just like there's so many other ways that they could have taken it to have the franchises insult each other. And it's such a shame because like Seth Rogen as that character is ridiculous and very funny, and the other characters that he plays, but there's so many, like, it starts there and then it's just like full blown gay panic after that in multiple scenes, and it's just really uncomfortable and disappointing. And it's funny, I was like, it's not funny, it's good to hear, but I was looking up some old reviews of this film, and even reviews at the time were calling out how disappointing it was that they chose to go that way. And Jay, the dude that plays Bottle or Bottler or whatever his name is, what the heck's his name? Jay Baruchel, or I'm not sure you pronounce it.
Oh, that's Windows, yeah. Jay Baruchel, that guy's rules.
But he talks about it, and he's like, I'm embarrassed to have done and participated in that. I would never make jokes like that nowadays. But yeah, it really hampered my enjoyment of the film. It's like super campy and corny, and you already make it. The film makes it like pretty difficult for most people to enjoy it who aren't in on the joke already. But then you add in like the gay panic jokes, and it's just like, Jesus.
I was surprised that Seth Rogen actually went through with that joke. I assume you're getting a paycheck to read the lines, so you don't really question what you're reading. But I was kind of surprised by that. And like the Dan Fogler constantly humping of his friends, and I'm like, it gets old really quickly, but at some point you kind of break, and that broke me. After that, it took me a while to get back into the movie, but it was mostly that Star Trek interaction scene. Like after that, it wasn't as bad, but it was that one scene that was terrible. My wife didn't realize it was Seth Rogen playing both Roach and the Star Trek guy, and so when I pointed it out, she was watching it with me. When I pointed it out that basically they were coming in the casino as a head-to-head, it was Seth Rogen versus Seth Rogen.
Yeah, the Roach character is one of my favorite characters in this movie, especially when he's got the back tattoo of Jar Jar Binks. This guy's gonna rule. I love that.
The best part was he's like I had him standing with kind of like the peace sign and his arms crossed, and then that exact image of Jar Jar is on George Lucas's computer in Skywalker Ranch. That made me laugh.
But no, you hit it on the head. Is like eventually. So like this movie came out when I was 16, and I like being a 16-year-old. I don't think I didn't notice any of the problems with like the, not even like, it's not even casual homophobia. It's like, it's very head on homophobia. And I didn't realize like how frustratingly annoying the Fogler character is, and how he's like, dude, like you were like repeatedly harassing every woman you see. Like, knock it off.
The misogyny in this movie is ridiculous. Like,
And
I feel bad for Kristen Bell. Like
totally.
And she rocks in this movie. She rocks in general. I love Kristen Bell.
She's awesome in everything she's ever done. We must protect her at all costs. But yeah, it's like I'm almost bummed that I watched this because I had such a fond memory of this movie that has just been shattered now. Like, and don't get me wrong, it's still much like the Family Guy stuff. It has its moments. Like up until the gay bashing in the Star Trek little confrontation. That confrontation's kind of funny at first, and then it takes this whole turn. I do still love the fact that the Khan yell at the end is kind of funny, but also I realized too, I'm like this like division between Star Trek fans and Star Wars fans. I don't think it actually exists, and like most people I know who are Star Trek fans also enjoy Star Wars, maybe not as much, and most people I know who like Star Wars also enjoy Star Trek. So I feel like that was like a manufactured division.
As I am sitting here looking at literally every episode of Star Trek ever released on DVD or Blu-ray is right in front of me. Like, I own all of them. I've watched all of them. Like, I like Star Trek.
I have never dressed up for any sort of Star Wars thing. As much as, which clearly, I don't know if you guys know this, I'm a pretty big Star Wars fan. I dressed up to go to the premiere of J.J. Abrams' Star Trek movie. Like, me and like 4 friends all went as different crew members. So it's like, hey, you can like both. They're both science fiction. So I don't know.
They're both fake stories about space. Like, really?
Yeah, I don't know. That's just like such a minor issue for me in the face of like the massive homophobia and like misogyny in this film. It's a little over 10 years old. So it's not that long ago, really, and things were certainly different then, but not that different. And it's just something that I'll not recommend to anyone and never watch again.
Yeah, you want, like, part of me is like, well, it's a product of its time, but it's like, no, it's not, because even then, all of this was still not okay.
So we're not tagging Kyle Newman in this post.
Probably shouldn't. The overall premise of the movie, I think, is a good premise. It just falls apart. There could have been a great movie. There just wasn't.
So let's talk about what I feel like has easily aged the best out of what we've talked about so far, and is thankfully not filled with horribly offensive humor. Robot Chicken. So if you're not familiar with Robot Chicken, it's a adult-orientated stop motion animation sketch comedy show that was on for, I think, like 10 seasons or something like that. It was on for a while on Cartoon Network, and it was really good. They basically parodied all sorts of stuff, and the episodes were around like 10 to 15 minutes long typically, and just made silly jokes about literally anything and everything. They would oftentimes do things similar to South Park, like parody what was going on in society and politics. But they put out 3 Star Wars episodes, or like 3.5 or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, I thought these were by far the best parody material I watched. There's no like linear storyline in any of them. They're all just different Star Wars jokes. Some of them just like completely random. Some of them about like characters and stories within the actual films. Some things referencing things that have nothing to do with it, but all clearly Star Wars themed and very funny for the most part.
I think episode 3, they tried to put an overarching story in there, but more it was a skit at the beginning connected to the skit at the end, and that was really what their bread in their sandwich was. It wasn't much of an overarching story. But I think
we know what your favorite part was, Jim.
I think the overall best thing about this is that each of like you said, it's a bunch of skits put together, and so each skit is like seconds to maybe a couple minutes long. If you have one bad skit, it doesn't ruin the whole thing because they are so disconnected from each other that you move on. Like the one skit was bad, it's okay. The next one was hilarious. So it has that aspect to it. Like you could literally pick and choose what you liked. I watched the DVDs versions of this, which apparently, based on what Connor was saying at the runtimes on the streaming, I had a lot more content than you guys did.
No, I just misremembered. For some reason, I thought they were all 15 minutes. They're not. They're 20. The first two are 20 minutes each, and the last one's 40 minutes.
My second one was 40 minutes long.
Jim, I gave you the lead-in for your what I feel like you must be wanting to talk about.
I know what you're hinting at. I want to talk about it too.
Oh, the Ariel poof.
There it is.
I laughed so hard, especially how much I've talked.
Yeah, the second that started up, I was like, Jesus Christ, Jim's going to be losing his mind right now.
I mean, that was the best thing because none of the Jedi Council talk except for Yoda and Mace in the movies, really. And you have Ariel poof kind of talking and constantly talking. And it's like, fine, I'll go get the pizza. And Ariel poof survives the massacre because he's off getting pizza.
And then when he comes back, I don't have much time. And when he does, he just sits down. He starts impersonating everybody. Actually, I feel like these Robot Chicken specials, we all enjoyed them, but I feel like Jim also gets the most enjoyment because not only is that Yarrow Poof's little bit is the best, but the best skits in all three of these are the Boba Fett skits. They're the way they have Boba Fett. Every time a Boba Fett skit comes on, it's so good. Boba Fett drunk on the barge trying to fight is like probably my favorite one of all of them. I think it is so funny. The most interesting man in the world commercial where he just at one point goes line and it's dead silence. So good. Every single Boba Fett skit is just perfect.
And I think they were voiced by Matt Seinreich, who is also one of the co-creators, and he just does a great job of it. Like it's just like the perfect, like cocky arrogance. I'm the best in the world, and he's like, "How did you get knocked down in the Sarlacc?" He's like, "Well, I was killing everybody, and I chose to go down here."
But I don't know what 84 Jedi's coming to attack us. I probably took down about 67 of them. It's so good. Or when he's taunting Han, he's got Han Carbonite and he's petting his face.
I really liked the nerd like fantasy booking Boba Fett when he was like Boba's killing all the Ewoks with all his weapons, and like he gets Leia, and then it shows the nerdy guy with his son, and he's like, and that was the best Star Wars adventure ever. The Genoshan monster truck commercial this Sunday.
One of my favorite ones was the Anakin killing the Jedi younglings.
Yep, I had that written down.
In the field of sunflowers.
Yeah, it's like I have a special surprise for you, so you need to close your eyes. And the little kid's like, "Is it a hug? We would love a hug." Like, oh my god!
Yeah, I had that one written down as like one of my favorite skits.
I really liked Dr. Ball, MD, refusing to give Leia this is a flu shot. Good day, sir. Like going around, like being like a good doctor and not a torture droid.
I think this has a lot of the most classic lines in it, especially the first one. Like, what the hell's an aluminum falcon?
Yeah.
Like that one is quoted a lot. One of my favorite ones again is the Tauntaun when he's in the elevator with George Lucas, and he's like, because that's George Lucas actually voiced George Lucas in it, and that's I absolutely love that. It's like, get on my back. George Lucas is saying there like, I don't know about this.
I love that one. Because as I was watching this, I realized I'm like, I got to write down all the ones I like because I'm going to forget them. And I would honestly say there's only one I remember that I'm like, okay, I actually hate this one. And that was the Yo Mama battle on the Death Star. Just because I don't think Yo Mama jokes are very funny.
I didn't think that whole sequence was very funny.
Yeah, that one I was like, yeah. Other than that, though, I would say I had Tauntaun Kid meeting George Lucas. Amazing. Boba Fett taunting Han Solo. Anytime Boba Fett pops up, actually. Another one, though, is when Darth Vader's explaining all the plot twists to Luke. And he does that's impossible. Luke, Leia's your sister. That's improbable. Like, and he just keeps getting like, wait, what?
I also really like all the Imperial officers pretending to let Darth Vader strangle them and like putting on disguises afterwards so we didn't realize it's somebody else. And
Jeremy's been choked over 15 times.
Yeah.
He's just covered in prosthetics.
He's going to pretend to choke you. Just go like this, drop to the ground, somebody drag you away. We'll give you a disguise. And the janitor...
Like, if you don't pretend you'll actually be killed, he'll actually kill you with his lightsaber. So you're going to play along.
The janitor, like the bodies falling down the shaft, and the janitor like continually sweeping them up.
It's when you realize a lot of bodies fall in this series.
I also really liked Obi-Wan kicking Luke in the nuts when he was training him with the blast shield down. It was just so juvenile but so funny. The bring your daughter to work day with the stormtrooper was really good.
And the fact that it's a recurring joke that same stormtrooper keeps coming back.
It's Donald Faison too, and you could tell it's Donald Faison. And I'm like every time you hear his voice, and I'm like, that's Donald Faison, and it's like he keeps coming back.
Oh, the lazy droid like on the couch watching TV, and Uncle Owen, this droid has a bad motivator. He's just like, oh, I'll clean them tomorrow. I
love IG-88 whenever he popped up because he was always just kind of not moving like in the movies, and then he just kind of like shows off his they show his like thought bubble, and it's him slam dunking a basketball into a net.
I also really liked the Wampa who had his arm chopped off like at the gas station, like struggling with his keys and his credit card and like the door, and then he like slowly drives by and makes eye contact with Luke as Luke's trying to avoid being seen.
I think what makes these what makes this so like effectively funny for me is they never punch down at Star Wars. It's always either like just using Star Wars as a context to make jokes that they already have, or like, you know, using the knowledge that Star Wars fans have to make a joke. But there's never like, they don't make fun of the franchise. They don't like. There's a couple times where they poke at the plot holes, like the Luke and Vader one I was just talking about. But it's all good natured and it's all in good fun. And I think that's why it's so enjoyable and it's so funny for Star Wars fans.
And it's also kind of contained. It's contained in Star Wars, whereas Family Guy had a lot of outside references. I had mentioned it offline. That probably the only dated references in Robot Chicken are the references to George W. Bush. And if you're not familiar with who that is and his daughter, you probably wouldn't get a lot of those jokes. And like I said, but these are short quips. You kind of move on with it. And I think that's part of how episode 1 was made of the Robot Chicken. It was a lot of the previously existing clips that they just compiled together for the special. And I think they had a couple extras that they made just for the special, but most of them were previously existing clips. Whereas by the time you get to the third one, you have that overarching plot thread. And I think they more made it as a Star Wars special as opposed to these are clips from other episodes of our shows.
Robot Chicken, hands down, was my favorite parody that we got out of all of this. And I think it was it aged the best, and it was structured the best. The jokes were the funniest. I definitely would put that at the top of these parodies. I'm glad we did this because I think it's important to go back and look at kind of the history of Star Wars parodies. I think it's also good to shine a light on the parodies that are bad and that people shouldn't be giving time, attention, or money to, and the good ones as well. So yeah, a fun episode, if not exhausting in the research that we had to do for it.
Of all the parodies we watched, the only one that I would legitimately recommend to people is the Robot Chicken stuff. Everything else, don't worry about it. Like, maybe watch Hardware Wars because it's only 13 minutes, but you probably won't enjoy your time.
Of all the ones I would go back to, I'd definitely go back to Robot Chicken. I think that because since they're so short, you kind of forget them after a while too. And so it's kind of like you wait 5 years, you rewatch it, and it's still going to be really funny and kind of surprising. But you guys hadn't watched Phineas and Ferb, so I'd like to point out, like, I would recommend people go see that too. And that's on Disney Plus, super easy. I don't know, where did you guys watch Robot Chicken?
HBO
I watched
Max.
it on HBO Max, yeah.
Okay, so people can find it there. You don't have to dig out the DVDs from Amazon.
All right, we got through it all. So I think, we'll look to do an episode like this again in the future. Not parodies, but more fan content. Like fan films would definitely be something that could be fun to do. So if you enjoyed this or have any feedback for us, we'd love to hear from you guys. Shoot us an email at Talkin Tauntauns on Twitter. You can get us there. For a DM, or you can email us talkingtauntauns@aibtcomics.com. And don't forget, as I said at the start of the episode, if you'd like to win that Luke on a Tauntaun Funko Pop, shoot us on Twitter or via email your favorite Star Wars character. That's all you have to do to enter.
Yep, and make sure you enter by March 7th. So the end of March 6th. We'll close it out on the midnight March 6th. And so we'll pick a name when we record on March 7th.
All right. And that is going to do it, guys. So thanks for hanging out today. We hope you enjoyed the show. We hope if you did, just take a few minutes, please, and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and share the show with your friends. It helps us out a lot. And as I said, we love feedback, whether it's about this show or anything Star Wars related. If you have a question for us that you'd like us to read on the air, if you have feedback that you don't want shared, either way, please, we'd love to hear from you. And our final quick reminder about our Star Wars book club, just for $2 a month, you can come and participate. We have a great group of people, and we're going to be reading Thrawn Ascendancy, Chaos Rising. So that's going to do it. We're going to get out of here. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, you kiddo.